Okay guys, let's now move to question 6.3, which says determine the range of f. So remember guys, always when you're required to determine the range of a given graph, you always refer to the y value at a turning point. So I've given 4 graphs where I need to quickly explain the concept of the range. So let's look at graph number 1. So you can see you've got a smiling shape of a graph, which is a parabola, and it has a turning point there. So that means for graph number 1, on the x and y axis, where the graph has got a smiling shape, and remember from our previous lessons we indicated that for a smiling shape, that means you've got a positive a value. So as far as the range is concerned, that means at that point, that's where you've got your y value at a turning point. So if you know the y value at that point, you can simply give the range of that graph, because the range of that graph will be at y is greater or equal to that y value. And also for the second graph, which is drawn on the x and y axis, it also has a smiling shape, and we know that for that it means the a value of this graph is positive. So if you can know the y value at that turning point, you can simply give the range of that graph. And remember, for you to be able to determine the y value at that point, you should be able to know those two x values, or from the given equation of that function, you can determine the x value at the turning point, and you can use that x value to determine the y value at the turning point of the graph. So the difference between those two graphs is that the turning point cuts the y-axis at where the y values are positive, whereas on this one you've got your y values which are negative. It could be -4, it could be any negative number. So that's how you would determine the turning point of a given graph. So we've got a third graph which has a set shape, which means you've got your a being negative for this graph, and also the turning point of this graph is at where the y values are positive. So suppose the y value at the turning point is 2. Therefore, with regards to the range of that graph, you'd say your y is less or equal to 2, which means from that point going down is the range of that graph. So you focus on the turning point and you indicate that at where y is 2 going down, it becomes the range of your graph. So that's why you say y less or equals to 2. So that means from where y is positive 2 going down is the range of your graph. So in this case, you'd have y greater than or equals to -4, which means from that point, or from that y value where your y is -4 going up, it becomes the range of that graph. Same for graph number 1. And also for graph number 4, you've got your turning point where your y value is negative. So let's assume the turning point is -1. So for the range of this graph, you'd have a y less or equals to -1. So remember, you can give the range of the graph if you know the y value at the turning point of the graph. Otherwise, if you don't know, or if you don't have the y value at the turning point, you then need to calculate the x value at the turning point, and you use that x value to substitute in the original graph of the parabola in order to find your y value. As soon as you get your y value, that's when you can give the final answer in terms of indicating the range of that particular graph.